Part 144. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1431. Chapter 1431 Interception. Wei Lingnan glanced at Gu Jingxiu, who was huddled in the corner calmly, and then looked at Xia Yingluo. This place is dirty, Aluo, you go out and have a rest first, and I will let you in after I finish cleaning up. Xia Yingluo shook her head. No, I want to keep the bell. In this life, her friends talked a lot about her young master, and they usually ate, drank, and had fun, and made friends. But how many of them supported her because of her status as the eldest lady, how many of them treated her sincerely, and she also don't know. Only Jin Ling who met each other in the cold weather, is so in love with each other that they can be regarded as good friends who will never abandon them until life or death. She cherished her. Wei Lingnan saw that he could not persuade her, so he glanced at Gu Jingxiu again, his expression a little cold. Gu Jingxiu was trembling at the sight, and a terrifying thought suddenly came to her mind. Wei Lingnan, wouldn't he take this opportunity to kill her? Neither of them are kind-hearted people. Gu Jingxiu was very sensitive to the murderous look in his eyes and was almost scared to death. Her brain was spinning uncontrollably, and she was thinking, if he wanted to kill her, how should he start? Yes, you must deliberately distract Xia Yingluo, and do something while Xia Yingluo is away, so that she can die without anyone noticing, pretending to be an accident. Flawless. Just like how she murdered Jin Ling. Gu Jingxiu's teeth chattered as she thought about her fate in the near future. Xia Yingluo heard the commotion and glanced at her with a frown. What are you arguing about? We Scatena people are not as timid as you. It doesn't matter if you are scared like this. Even now, you can't control yourself. She turned to face Wei Lingnan and said, throw this noisy and dirty woman out. An imperceptible smile flashed across the corners of Wei Lingnan's lips, and he walked towards Gu Jingxiu step by step. Gu Jingxiu looked at this dangerous man approaching, and her heart was broken. She guessed that she would not survive today, so she might as well just do it and drag that annoying woman Xia Yingluo into the water. Don't come here, Gu Jingxiu said to Wei Lingnan tremblingly, I can walk by myself. Wei Lingnan is still approaching. Don't, Gu Jingxiu screamed, please don't kill me. I'll go out by myself. Miss Xia, Her Majesty, please let him stop. I know he will take the opportunity to kill me. He will definitely do it. Xia Yingluo's brows furrowed slightly, and she really shouted to Wei Lingnan, stop. Wei Lingnan stopped obediently and turned around with a hint of innocence. Aluo, do you believe me or her? Xia Yingluo narrowed her eyes and looked at him. She would rather believe Gu Jingxiu in this matter. It's not like she didn't know how many lives were lost in Wei Lingnan. She just lost her mind and let him throw Gu Jingxiu out. She waved her hand. Wei Lingnan, go wash the mop and mop the floor again. Gu Jingxiu, go out by yourself and move quickly, it stinks. After speaking, there was a look of disgust on his face. Wei Lingnan reluctantly went to wash the mop. Xia Yingluo lowered her head and continued to check Jin Ling's condition. Most of the greenish-black color on the girl's face on the hospital bed has faded, and she is almost the same as a normal person. Her originally cold body has gradually regained some warmth and gained some color. Xia Yingluo was very pleased. She held her hand and said softly, Ling, I will always be with you. You must get well soon. As soon as I finished speaking, I suddenly felt a cold feeling in the back of my heart, and then a severe pain came. Xia Yingluo took a breath, and her hands instantly turned into sharp claws out of instinct, and she suddenly attacked behind her with her backhand. Behind him, someone groaned and fell to the ground on the other side of the ward like a rag sack. Yingluo, Wei Lingnan's voice came from the direction of the bathroom, near the door. Xia Yingluo's body fell softly, feeling light and dazed, as if she was about to pull away from her body. The instinct of the Scatana star made her realize that her heart had been stabbed to pieces. For the human body, it was definitely a one-shot death, and there was no possibility of survival. Fortunately, she was from the planet Scatana. Even if she was stabbed in the heart, she still had a mouthful of energy hanging around. However, without the pulse of her heart, the energy was also being lost at an extremely fast rate. She didn't even know that she could still hold on. How long? Maybe he will die next moment. Yingluo, in a trance, I heard Wei Lingnan's heartbreaking cry again. She turned her head with difficulty and saw him rushing towards her desperately, his face twisted with fear and anxiety. Not far away from him, Gu Jingxiu lay lifeless like a piece of rag, and a dagger was discarded on the floor. Just now, Gu Jingxiu grabbed this dagger and took advantage of her absence. When he was ready, he stabbed her in the heart. Gu Jingxiu closed her eyes tightly. There were wounds on her body that Xia Yingluo had pierced with her sharp claws when she defended herself. She didn't know whether she was alive or dead. Wei Lingnan rushed to her, lifted her limp body, and shouted again, "Yingluo!" Xia Yingluo looked at his face and struggled to focus. She felt that his face was so blurry and distant, as if he came from another time and space. She moved her fingers with difficulty, trying to raise her hand to touch his cheek, but she was too weak to do anything. Her face was as pale as broken petals. She gave a bitter smile that was uglier than crying, and moved her lips, "Nan." Instead of calling him Wei Lingnan as fiercely as before, she called out the man who had lived hundreds of millions of years ago. The name I called out countless times affectionately, Nan. The person she loved deeply and could not forget in her heart. "Yingluo, just hold on, you'll be fine." Wei Lingnan's face was also pale. He was frightened. He never thought that things would turn out like this. He was too careless and failed to deal with Gu Jingxiu in time. Gave the woman a desperate chance. He bit his own wrist and poured blood into her mouth desperately. "Aluo, drink it and I will help you repair your heart. Hurry." She bit his wrist subconsciously, and the sweet blood mixed with energy flowed into her mouth. Along with the energy in her body, it rushed to the slit in her heart, but it quickly disappeared without a trace. This energy was consumed at an incredibly fast rate. She sadly discovered the fact that even the two of them together would not be able to revive her before the energy was exhausted. No, she turned her head sideways, refusing to drink his blood. "You, don't save me. Live well, live with the world tree within her body." The seeds of the world tree were faintly emitted. With the heat, he is ready to move. She and it realized at the same time that the damaged heart could not be repaired. The next moment, its energy suddenly surged, forming an invisible and intangible net in her body, intercepting all the energy flowing towards the tear in the heart. She coughed, and her face turned gray at a speed visible to the naked eye. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1432. Chapter 1432 The Choice of World Tree. "Yingluo," Wei Lingnan's voice changed the tone. He turned her head and sent energy into her body again. However, after losing for only a few seconds, she realized something was wrong. Instead of improving at all, her complexion became increasingly gray, like a withered rose being burned to ashes. Wei Lingnan was heartbroken and didn't understand why this was happening. Even if the combined energy of the two of them couldn't save her, she shouldn't have deteriorated so quickly. He subconsciously examined her body and soon discovered the problem. Only her lower abdomen was glowing slightly, and with the unique eyesight of the Scatana people, she could see a golden-green magical net that was expanding and contracting. World Tree, Wei Lingnan had an ominous premonition in his heart. World Tree is absorbing your energy. Yingluo. Cough, cough. Xia Yingluo coughed with difficulty and said in an extremely weak voice, I can't survive. It's just maximizing its profits. The world tree is still just a fragile seed. Even if the mother body is dead, it will be difficult for it to survive. Just after it judged the situation, it immediately intercepted Xia Yingluo's energy, so that it could ensure that it obtained as much nutrition as possible. After Xia Yingluo died, it might be able to persist until it obtained a new mother body. It is the last hope of the Scatena tribe and nothing can happen to it. This decision has nothing to do with likes and dislikes, it is just a rationally calculated choice. If the calculation result is that Xia Yingluo's survival is more beneficial to the Scatena tribe, it will also choose to sacrifice itself to save her. But the current situation is too bad. It is just a seed. It cannot instill energy into her, so it can only be abandoned. Wei Lingnan could not accept such a result. He ordered Yggdrasil in a cold voice, "Stop." But World Tree ignored him at all and raced against time to absorb the energy from Xia Yingluo's body. The energy dissipated in her body was dissipated at an astonishing speed. If she didn't absorb it quickly, it would soon dissipate without any trace left. Wei Lingnan's eyes suddenly showed murderous intent, and one of his hands suddenly turned into a sharp claw, and suddenly stabbed Xia Yingluo in the lower abdomen. "We will die together." His sharp claws pierced Xia Yingluo's soft abdomen like cutting tofu. She groaned in pain and felt something leave her body, and was cruelly pulled out of her body by Wei Lingnan. Nan, she wanted to stop him, but was unable to do so. If only one of her and World Tree can survive, then she will leave the chance of survival to World Tree. She looked at Wei Lingnan sadly, tears welling up in her eyes. She didn't know whether it was because of the pain or what she had witnessed what he had done. Everyone, including herself, the first choice when encountering this situation is to protect the World Tree. Only he, her guardian, will still violate the most serious laws of the Scatena tribe for her after hundreds of millions of years. Fa would rather be the enemy of the whole clan to save her. Although, they all know that the probability of saving her is so slim. The broken heart was slowly collapsing, and the mutilated pieces of flesh blocked her blood vessels. She coughed painfully again, feeling a burning pain. The angry screams of the World Tree echoed in the air. Wei Lingnan threw it to the ground without even looking at it, and continued to concentrate on pouring blood into Xia Yingluo. The tears in her eyes slid down her skin, and she wanted to tell him not to do this, so what if she could live for a while? Even if his energy is exhausted, she will still die. But she was too weak to make a sound or say a single word. The wounds on her back and lower abdomen continued to bleed, and a large amount of bright red spread from the mattress to the floor, covering the whole room. Wei Lingnan held her hand tightly, his voice hoarse and trembling, "Aluo, don't die, Aluo." But her vision gradually blurred, and her body felt light, as if it was about to float. Perhaps. Are you really going to die? She thought vaguely, and the scenes from childhood to adulthood flashed through her mind like a movie, followed by the past life on the planet Scatena, her first acquaintance with him, the conclusion of a contract, and fighting side by side. How great it would be if time could be turned back. Then could they find a way to be happy together? The moment before she lost consciousness, she moved her lips slightly and said quietly, "Nan, I love you." "Aluo," his heart-rending screams echoed in the ward. Her breath gradually cooled down, and he hugged her tightly into his arms. The blood from the wound on his wrist was still being flowed into her mouth as if desperately. He didn't care that she couldn't swallow it at all, and the blood overflowed from her mouth. It flowed on their clothes and bodies. Yingluo. He refused to let go, and his body was getting cold. This was caused by excessive blood loss. In the ward, Gu Jingxiu, who had been pushed aside by Xia Yingluo, was not dead. At this moment, she was dying and looking at the scene in front of her, crying and laughing, "Ha, ha ha, Xia Yingluo, you bitch, you are finally dead, you're finally dead." He smiled and suddenly looked at Wei Lingnan with a face full of horror. "Nan, stop giving blood to that bitch, you will die if you continue like this. Wei Lingnan turned a deaf ear to her voice, and blood still poured out in large amounts. If they were going to die, then they should die together. He took all the trouble to come to this planet and spent so much time and effort resurrecting her, not just to watch her die again. He had had enough of losing her, and was afraid of enduring the long and desperate loneliness, gnawing at his bones day and night, tossing and turning in his thoughts. He had no confidence in resurrecting her again, and was afraid that he would go crazy before that day. So, either live together or die together. The blood loss in his body was increasing. Wei Lingnan felt his body gradually getting colder, and soon he lost consciousness. The seeds of the world tree made a slight buzzing sound. Seeing this scene, it was very angry, angrier than ever before. Now there are only 2.5 Scatena people in the world, Gu Jingxiu counts as half, and the only ones who can take care of it and give it hope to survive are Xia Yingluo and Wei Lingnan. It doesn't matter if one of them dies, but if both of them die, it won't live long without care. Soon the Scatena tribe will really be exterminated. The anger of the world tree seed swept through the entire ward, the glass windows burst and the 4 stands fell down. But this anger did not last long, and it soon regained its calm. The golden green light overflowed like water, and gradually formed a circle of mist, which looked so beautiful and charming. Gu Jingxiu noticed something strange about it and couldn't help but turn his head to look at it. This time, it was as if something had caught his sight, as if he was possessed by something, and he couldn't help but approach it. She was seriously injured and unable to walk, and crawled little by little towards the monster seed that was still stained with blood. This is the second update. Last night. I'm still at a relative's house these days, and there are a lot of things happening every day. I have to go out during the day today, and I'll update it in the evening. Please forgive me for the fact that it's almost over. Yes, this is the last major plot, and it will be over in the next few days. This is the real finale, and there will be no other extras. I know that many of you who can catch up here will join me. I'm reluctant to let you go, so let me know in advance. Please be mentally prepared. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1433. Chapter 1433 Prayer. Finally getting closer, she stretched out her hand tremblingly and grabbed the seed in her palm. The blood-stained core of the world tree seed disappeared in the palm of her hand in a flash. The palm of her hand also had the mysterious and gorgeous golden green leaf mark like Xia Yingluo had before. However, this time the leaf mark was broken. Incomplete. The seeds of the world tree melted into the palm of her hand and tried to drill into her lower abdomen along her blood vessels, but they did not move even an inch. It has long known that this is the result, except the queen, who else can conceive it in the body? It only let out an unwilling scream and stopped its futile attempt. Ring the emergency bell, quick, the voice of the world tree seeds echoed in Gu Jingxiu's mind, and he ordered. Gu Jingxiu's body shook violently, and she realized in disbelief that the seeds of the world tree were parasitic on her body. However, let alone her current weakness and death, even she in her prime could not resist the amazing power of the world tree. Wool. Her body was like a puppet on strings. She walked towards the bedside without her own control and pressed the emergency bell beside the bed. The shrill bell rang immediately. Yggdrasil seed ordered non-stop, call Xiaomoyan. Gu Jingxiu instinctively wanted to resist, but the angry scream of the world tree seeds made her head hurt and blood started to flow from her mouth and nose. She trembled and took out a small mobile phone from Xia Yingluo, who didn't know whether she was alive or dead. She completed the dialing under the control of the world tree seed. The call was quickly connected, and Xiaomoyan's cold voice came over there. Yingluo. Xia Yingluo is in Ward 1706 of Changren Hospital. Her heart is damaged, her energy has been exhausted and her blood has dried up. Her life and death are unknown now. Come here quickly. Gu Jingxiu's eyes were empty, and he read out the instructions of the World Tree Seed mechanically and hung up the phone. It had only been less than a minute since she pressed the emergency bell. The ward door was suddenly opened, and two nurses on duty rushed in. Seeing the scene in front of them, their expressions changed drastically. Quick! Get ready to rescue. They scrambled around a few people whose life and death were unknown. However, they only took one look at Xia Yingluo and shook their heads. This one is already dead. Although Gu Jingxiu's body, words, and deeds were controlled by the seeds of the world tree, her self-awareness was still very clear. She had just rang the emergency bell and made a phone call. Her heart was filled with hatred. Why should she save Xia Yingluo? Why do you have to save Xia Yingluo with your own hands? At this time, when the nurse said that Xia Yingluo was dead, she finally showed a happy smile. As soon as my nerves relaxed, I felt an unprecedented weakness and dizziness. My body swayed and I fell down. Xia Moyan will arrive soon. Under his cold gaze, the attending doctor and several nurses were trembling a little, but they had to bite the bullet and tell him, Ms. Xia's heartbeat has stopped, her pupils are dilated, and she has no vital signs. Please forgive me. Before he finished speaking, Xia Moyan interrupted him rudely, carry her onto a stretcher and carry her to the rooftop with several other people. Wait for the helicopter to pick them up and leave the hospital. After receiving Gu Jingxiu's call, he immediately realized when something serious happened to my niece. I immediately arranged a helicopter and calculated the time and it would arrive soon. Sure enough, there was a sound of propellers passing outside the hospital building, and a helicopter flew past. The attending doctor was shocked. Discharge. But Mr. Wei and Miss Gu are still uncertain whether they are alive or dead, so they are not suitable for discharge procedures. Before he finished speaking, his cell phone rang. He picked up the phone and said, "It's me, Dean." "Yes, Dean." "Okay, Dean, I'll do it right away." Then he hung up the phone and ordered the nurse beside him neatly, "Do as Mr. Xia said." Several nurses looked at each other and they all heard that the attending doctor just received a call personally delivered by the dean. It must have something to do with the departure of Mr. Xia in front of me, and the dean was taken care of. Everyone in the workplace is a smart person, so the nurses responded immediately, quickly, and methodically arranged stretchers, and sent Xia Yingluo and others to the rooftop. Xia Moyan followed up. On the rooftop, there was indeed a helicopter hovering. Xia Moyan supervised them as they sent all the injured people up. The helicopter took off and flew all the way to the outskirts of the city. After flying for a short time, we landed slowly in a hidden abandoned factory. The basketball court-like ground of the factory sank little by little, and then sank again, like a huge elevator sinking hundreds of meters underground. Weishi biopharmaceutical base. The base sounded the first level alarm, and many heavily armed guards aimed high-tech weapons of various shapes at them. The leader was an old man with gray hair. He looked at Xia Moyan as if facing a formidable enemy. "Master, Imperial Master, the Wei family and you have always been on the same page. Why are you suddenly here today?" Xia Moyan turned sideways, revealing Wei Lingnan's stretcher that was blocked behind him. "Mr. Wei," the old man's expression changed drastically and he shouted, then he looked at Xia Moyan with hatred, "What on earth did you do to Mr. Wei? Hurry up and use all the means you have here to treat him." Xia Moyan's voice was cold, but he spoke quickly, "And Yingluo? Otherwise, you will wait for them to die, and then the Xia family's anger will destroy everything here, including everyone." The murderous intent in his flat tone made people shiver. At this time, the old man ignored the aggression in his words and hurriedly ordered the people behind him, "Put down all weapons. Open all the reserve energy banks number 3, 4, and 5. Also open the healing pool. Quick." Escort Mr. Wei and Miss Yago to the healing pool. The whole base was in a hurry. Staff are executing orders like worker ants. The old man walked up to Xiaomoyan nervously. Master, Imperial Master, do you have any other orders? As long as we can save Mr. Wei, we will do our best to satisfy whatever request you make. Xiaomoyan nodded slightly. Make a big open space for me near the healing pool, 81 pounds of white candles, 81 meters of red thread, paper, pens, water, and fragrant flowers, the more jade the better, hurry up. The old man was very embarrassed. The healing pool is very small. Then remove all the obstacles. Okay, the old man gritted his teeth and obeyed the urgent need. Not to mention demolishing the peripheral space of the healing pool, he was willing to demolish the entire underground base as long as he could save Wei Lingnan. After all, Wei Lingnan is the soul of the entire base. Without him, there would be no such exciting scientific research. The open space near the healing pool was quickly cleared. Xiaomoyan set up a large magic circle with white candles, red threads, fragrant flowers, etc. He himself wore a white plain shirt and stood in the middle of the magic circle to pray quietly. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1434. Chapter 1434. Yingluo wakes up. Xia Yingluo's consciousness was floating, and she didn't know where she was. There was deathly silence all around. She felt as if she was dissipating, and as if something was pulling her, allowing her to barely maintain her current form. She vaguely remembered what happened in the ward. So was she dead now? She wasn't sure either. What about Wei Lingnan? Where is Wei Lingnan? Is he still guarding her physically and mentally exhausted, or does he die with her? She searched this small space, wanting to find the man but also afraid that he really existed here. But we still met. She saw a faint light drifting towards her. As she got closer, she realized that it was Wei Lingnan's hazy figure. It was in a translucent state that seemed to float away at any time. Most of it looked like a human being. Only one leg was dragging feebly, gray and white, as if it had been severely injured and turned into an animal shape. It couldn't use any strength and limped forward. Allo, she heard his call in the dark. She walked up to him. Why are you here? What's wrong with your legs? He didn't answer, only said, Allo, don't move. As he spoke, his figure gradually faded into a ball of white light, gently wrapping her in it. She couldn't move and felt the light repairing her body. Her fragile body, which was on the verge of collapse, gradually became solid, while the light became weaker and weaker. She was shocked and shouted angrily, Wei Lingnan, what on earth are you doing? He was speechless. However, as they merged, his countless emotions, memories, and information came overwhelmingly toward her. She saw his past, when he was a fruit struggling to survive on the most desolate plain of Scatana. Every day he faced coldness, darkness, killing and blood, without darkness, without a trace of warmth. Until she appeared. A pitifully stupid little princess carefully cut her own hand to claim him. He always looked at her secretly when she was not aware of it, and followed her with his eyes. Her every smile touched his heart. When she looked at him, he seemed to own the whole world. For the first time, someone cared about whether he was cold or in pain. For the first time, someone was worried about him and worried about his life and death. He vowed to protect her throughout his life, not to let anyone take her away, and not to let anyone hurt her. He thought that as long as he launched a rebellion and defeated everyone, he could completely own her. But he didn't expect the ending to be so tragic. She blew herself up, and the entire planet was destroyed. He was heartbroken, and he wandered around the boundless universe with her remaining remains, hundreds of millions of years of regret and loneliness, hundreds of millions of years of despair. He hated her, hated that she refused to accept him no matter what, but he hated himself even more, hating himself for causing her to die. All the regrets turned into atonement. He finally found the earth and researched a way to resurrect her at all costs. Experiments failed again and again, and he was disappointed again and again. Finally, she was really alive. He was so happy and so happy. So wronged, all the forbearance, anxiety, and anger broke out at that moment. He desperately wanted to get her and would not let her escape again. Too eager and too unsure, that's why he was so cruel to her when they first met. Later, she finally agreed to be with him, and he was so happy that his heart felt like it was going to explode with joy. He invited her to enjoy the snow and have a meal, but he didn't expect that in that restaurant, another woman he had never paid attention to suddenly called him by his real name in the language of Scatena. The shock and impact at that moment was so strong. The voice and even the intonation of the woman were exactly the same as her in the previous life, so he immediately concluded that the woman was the real Alugo, and she was a fake. How can you be attracted to fake goods? He was in agony, punished himself, and deliberately alienated her, but he still couldn't control his desire to hold her in his arms. He didn't know how he survived those days. He was confused and his heart was torn in two every day, half due to his loyalty to Gu Jingxiu, the queen, and the other half due to his uncontrollable love for her, the fake. At that time, his life was no easier than hers. After the failed wedding between him and Gu Jingxiu wanted to give her a fatal poison in the laboratory. He desperately tried to stop her at the critical moment of life and death. At that time, he understood that her choice was her, regardless of her. Is it a fake? And care about Jingxiu? No, he doesn't love Gu Jingxiu, he just loves the Alugo from his previous life. Nan. Wei Lingnan's memory penetrated Xia Yingluo's body, and she burst into tears. Stop, stop, don't die, you are not allowed to die, do you hear me? But no matter what she said, or whether she struggled or ran to get rid of the white light that gently surrounded her, the white light clung to her as if it were alive, and penetrated into her body bit by bit, repairing her broken heart. In the void, the sound of Sanskrit singing could be faintly heard, which was Xia Moyan's prayer, accelerating the repair process. Don't do this, don't do this, she cried, kneeling down. The restoration of the white light continued, and she saw more memories. When the ground in the laboratory collapsed, he overexerted one of his legs to save her and was seriously injured. In order to save energy for her use, he never repaired the leg. He watched the grayness spread before his eyes, and endured unbearable pain every day, acting as if nothing happened in front of her. As long as you are okay, that is my greatest wish, she heard him say in the dark. Finally heard you say you love me personally, I am very happy. Farewell, Aluo. The white light completely integrated into her body and disappeared. She screamed heartbreakingly, Nan. Then the sky collapsed, all the Sanskrit chants rang out in unison, the world in the void collapsed, and she closed her eyes subconsciously. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to reality. Above the head is the ceiling of the healing pool, and under the body is the potion that has become transparent and has lost its energy and nutrients. On the outside of the healing pool, there were circles of talismans drawn by Xia Moyan with white wax and red lines, which were mysterious and mysterious. Yingluo, you're awake. Xia Moyan noticed her awakening immediately, stopped singing, and stepped forward to look at her with concern. She had no intention of exchanging pleasantries and only asked Xia Moyan hurriedly, where is Wei Lingnan? How is Wei Lingnan? Xia Moyan shook his head, he was seriously injured. We put him and you into the healing pool. Now that you're awake, he's not moving at all. He can't be saved. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1435. Chapter 1435 Golden Green Entanglement. Xia Yingluo couldn't accept such an answer. Her eyes searched eagerly in the healing pool, and finally found Wei Lingnan at the other end of the pool. His body was completely submerged in the water. She leaned over and dragged him from the bottom of the pool to the shore. It was cold where she started. "Nan, Wei Lingnan," she shouted eagerly, "wake up." His eyes were closed tightly, and his heartbeat and breathing had stopped. She refused to give up and used the first aid knowledge her father Li Lei had taught her to give him cardiopulmonary resuscitation and artificial respiration. However, more than 10 minutes later, she still had no reaction. "Don't waste your efforts," Xia Moyan's voice came, with a hint of compassion. "When you were unconscious, I saw a ball of white light leaving his body and integrating into yours. He should have put all his energy into it. Give it to you so you can survive." Xia Yingluo shook her head in pain. "No. I don't believe it." She always thought that he would not die. He was so indestructible, how could he die? But she understood very well what her uncle was talking about. When she was floating in the void before, it was indeed the energy that repaired her broken heart and allowed her to wake up again. That ball of energy carries his consciousness and emotions. It is not ordinary energy, but his life source energy. He integrated his own life source energy into her body. How could he survive? A person dies like a lamp going out, nothing is left. Her tears flowed down her cheeks, and each drop fell on his cold face. "Yingluo." Xia Moyan couldn't bear to say it, but couldn't find a word to comfort her. The greatest sorrow for a person is this: how can it be comforted casually? Suddenly, Xia Moyan's eyes widened. He saw Xia Yingluo trembling all over from crying. Following her tiny trembling, a small group of white dim light spots slipped out from her clothes, which was probably what was left of her fusion. Fell quietly on his face. Then, the small ball of light disappeared like snowflakes melting. "Uncle." Xia Yingluo also saw it and called Xia Moyan in a trembling voice. Xia Moyan stepped forward, checked Wei Lingnan's heartbeat and pupils, sighed, and shook his head at Xia Yingluo. The light spot just now was probably an accident. That little bit of residue had no effect on his life at all, just like a drop of water cannot moisturize the entire desert. His life, which had long been as desolate as the desert, had no improvement at all. Xia Yingluo shook her head and refused to give up. "No, there must be a way to save him, for sure. He still has some life energy left. It's integrated into his body bit by bit. I saw it. This must be what God gave me hope. I can't give up." She stood up and said to Xia Moyan, "Uncle, ask the people at the base to prepare a ward and move him in. He won't die." Before Xia Moyan could answer, he heard a scream. "Who do you think is going to die?" Following the scream, a woman with an exquisite face rushed in, her whole body wrapped in a golden green light invisible to ordinary humans. It was Gu Jingxiu inside. "Gu Jingxiu," Xia Yingluo instinctively blocked Wei Lingnan's body. Xia Moyan's eyes were cold and serious. "How did you get in? The base in Wei Lingnan is heavily defended. Even if Gu Jingxiu was a guest here, it would be impossible to break into such an important place as the healing pool." Gu Jingxiu sneered and raised her hand. Following her movements, the strange golden green light emitted hesitantly. "You must be Xia Moyan. What's so great about being a planet guardian? You ask me how I got in? That's ridiculous. I am the master of the world tree of Scatana. You are no match for me. Stupid humans, I can easily break into this place by making the world tree invisible. Come on." "How is Wei Lingnan doing now?" Xia Moyan frowned slightly and glanced at Xia Yingluo. Xia Yingluo stared at Gu Jingxiu closely. "Uncle said he is dead, but I don't believe it." "Gu Jingxiu, do you have any way to save him?" She had noticed the palm of Gu Jingxiu's hand, where there was a broken golden green leaf mark. There was a faint ominous atmosphere. She didn't care how the world tree seeds got into Gu Jingxiu's body, or she didn't have time to care. The top priority was Wei Lingnan. He's dead. Gu Jingxiu's face changed drastically and she rushed over, let me see him quickly. Having said this, he pushed Xia Yingluo aside and saw Wei Lingnan's lifeless body. Nan. She cried sadly, and then cried and laughed, are you dead? How could you die? You haven't fallen in love with me yet, you haven't let me torture you severely to get what you want. Kill me. How can you die now? Nan, wake up, Nan. Her face was filled with tears and she looked like she was going crazy. Xia Moyan calmly pulled Xia Yingluo back a few steps and asked her, is there any way you can save him? A way, yes, a way. Gu Jingxiu's eyes suddenly became fierce, and he stood up suddenly, looking ferociously at Xia Yingluo beside him. Of course there is a way, as long as this woman devotes all her energy, give it to Nan, and you can save him in exchange for your life. Can't. Good. The voices of Xia Moyan and Xia Yingluo sounded at the same time. Xia Moyan looked at Xia Yingluo with an evil expression, you are crazy. Xia Yingluo shook her head, uncle, I know you love me, but he bought my life with his own life, if I had a choice, I would rather die and let him live. His life energy entered the moment he touched her body, she suddenly understood his love for her over the past billions of years. That love was so deep that it made her heart tremble. It was time for her to pay for him once. Ha 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 ha. Gu Jingxiu laughed crazily. The golden green light surrounding her body flickered like flames. She pulled out a dagger hidden on her body and rushed towards Xia Yingluo, then, accept die. Xia Moyan's expression changed, and he wanted to stop her, but found that the woman seemed to be held back by something, unable to move forward an inch. What's going on? Gu Jingxiu shouted angrily, looking at the golden green energy chains of World Tree wrapped around his body. World Tree, why are you pestering me? I order you to let go. What answered her was a tighter restraint. Gu Jingxiu was a little panicked and very angry, World Tree. I order you. After witnessing all this, Xia Yingluo suddenly understood something and said, Gu Jingxiu, it turns out that you are not controlling the World Tree at all, but the World Tree is controlling you. It's no wonder that Gu Jingxiu is a fake with impure blood. How can you control such a powerful World Tree? This World Tree seed was an existence that even Xia Yingluo had been controlled by. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1436. Chapter 1436. Wei Lingnan wakes up. Gu Jingxiu's face changed, and he obviously discovered the truth, and shouted angrily, World Tree. Why do you want to control me? Let me go. Stop struggling. In the air, came the faint and cold reply of the World Tree seed, smart woman, I just used you to get here. There is only one person who can suppress me, and that is Her Majesty the Queen. As for you, idiot's dream. Gu Jingxiu's face turned pale, and she realized that she had lost to Xia Yingluo once again. She shook her head, her expression gradually becoming crazy. Impossible, impossible. The thing she couldn't tolerate the most was losing to Xia Yingluo, not to mention that she had just experienced the catastrophe of life and death, and thought that she had controlled the World Tree and was invincible in the world. But was suddenly told that all this was false. How could she not be disappointed and angry? The voice of World Tree rang again, Gu Jingxiu, mobilize your energy to release me from the body, and I will save Wei Lingnan. Gu Jingxiu's expression became even crazier and she laughed, ha 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 ha, you want to lie to me, don't you? You are still under my control, so you have no ability to leave my body by yourself. I will not let you go, just stay here and work for me. As for Wei Lingnan, Xia Yingluo will save him. Xia Yingluo just agreed to trade her life for him. She stretched out her hand and pointed at Xia Yingluo, her expression full of resentment. Xia Yingluo frowned slightly and looked at her, with an ominous premonition rising in her heart. Gu Jingxiu, release it quickly. World Tree's behavior has always been very stubborn. If Gu Jingxiu insists on having his own way, who knows what the consequences will be. Gu Jingxiu was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Don't try to lie to me. You must be jealous of me after losing the World Tree, for sure. Xia Yingluo, I am stronger than you now, don't even think about ordering me. In the void, a sneer came from World Tree, hurry up and release me, stupid woman. If it's too late, it will be too late to save Wei Lingnan. It's not that it has deep feelings for Wei Lingnan, but that it knows very well that only Wei Lingnan, this purebred scatinous star, has enough ability to survive. Otherwise, even if Xia Yingluo could survive alone, she would not be able to collect enough energy to carry her with her. So, Wei Lingnan must live. Gu Jingxiu screamed, let that exchange her life for her life. Yggdrasil sneered again, stupid. Wei Lingnan was able to heal Xia Yingluo's injuries and exchange his own life for hers, but this did not mean that Xia Yingluo could do the same. Xia Yingluo has human blood mixed in her body, and her energy is much weaker than that of Wei Lingnan, and it is simply not enough to save Wei Lingnan. If you want, you can live in Wei Lingnan, only I will exchange my life for my life, World Tree said without any emotion. As soon as these words came out, not only Gu Jingxiu, but also Xia Yingluo and Xia Moyan were shocked. You? Xia Yingluo asked in disbelief. She didn't expect that the World Tree that had been clamoring to eat Wei Lingnan would be willing to sacrifice herself for him. Yggdrasil was indignant, do you think I want it? You are simply the stupidest scatina people in this world. No, in the entire universe, that idiot Wei Lingnan would sacrifice himself to save you. I can't live if he dies. I can only let him live and give birth to a World Tree with you, then my sacrifice will not be in vain. Everything it does is for the survival of the race. Xia Yingluo understood its meaning and said softly, thank you. If the World Tree had a physical form, you would definitely roll your eyes at this time. But it didn't, so it just snorted angrily and ordered Gu Jingxiu, stupid woman, release me quickly. Gu Jingxiu also heard the conversation between the two of them, but still didn't believe it. Stop lying to me. Let her trade her life for her life first. If it doesn't work, I will release you. In her opinion, World Tree just wants it's just out of her control, she will never let it succeed. As soon as he finished speaking, a loud noise was heard. Gu Jingxiu's entire left hand exploded with a bang, and the blood mist and broken flesh, muscles, and bones filled the sky, like a huge storm. Gu Jingxiu screamed, my hand. Her left palm and half of her forearm had disappeared without a trace, leaving only incomplete fractures, broken bones, and flesh and blood. There was a small seed that exploded with her palm. The seeds have been torn apart, and golden green light is flying in all directions, gorgeous, and the huge energy released makes the air in the entire space roar slightly. Xia Yingluo's face turned pale. She didn't expect World Tree to be so decisive and chose to self-destruct after a disagreement. She felt a little sad in her heart. Although getting along with this World Tree seed has not been very pleasant since she was pregnant, but after gestating it for so long and being together for so long, it is impossible to say that she has no feelings at all. Before the sadness faded, I saw the golden green light hovering in the air several times, and then all flew towards Wei Lingnan's cold body, disappearing into Wei Lingnan's body. Nan, Xia Yingluo ran over, knelt beside him, held his hand, and looked at him nervously. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that his body was getting warmer. She was so happy that her body trembled slightly, and she stared at him more carefully. A few minutes later, I found that he was really breathing weakly, and even his heartbeat had recovered and became palpable. She was so happy that she fell on him and cried. Over there, Gu Jingxiu, whose arm was half blown off, couldn't bear the severe pain and passed out. Xia Moyan quietly witnessed all this, walked out, and ordered the staff guarding the door, arrange Wei Lingnan and Gu Jingxiu to go to the ward for treatment and rest. Although the staff was surprised that there were suddenly more people in the room, Gu Jingxiu carried them both out on a stretcher very well. Xia Yingluo followed Wei Lingnan's stretcher, helped the staff get him settled, and stayed by his side sleeplessly. The sun and the moon passed by. Xia Yingluo was still undressed, and she didn't know how many days had passed. During this period, her parents and brother took turns visiting her and bringing her water and food. She just guarded Wei Lingnan, and when she felt sleepy, she would lie down next to his hospital bed to rest. All promotional activities for Star Wars Chronicles 2 have been stopped. Now that the World Tree no longer exists, they no longer need so much energy. Now there is only one thought in her mind, that is, he will get better. As long as he gets better, she is willing to live a good life with him and never be separated again in this life. Finally one day, Wei Lingnan slowly opened his eyes in the hospital bed. What caught his eye was her pale and haggard face. Aluo. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1437. Chapter 1437. It starts with love, final chapter. His voice was hoarse, as if it had been thousands of years. Tears welled up in her eyes again, and she looked at him crying and laughing. You finally woke up, do you know how worried I am? You are never allowed to trade for me with your life again, do you hear me? Do you hear me? A weak smile appeared on his haggard face. Okay. At that time, when he gave her his life source energy, he never thought of living. But, somehow he survived. He asked her, how did you save me? Her expression darkened slightly. World Tree. Then she told him about the self-destruction of the World Tree seeds. He also became sad. No matter what Yggdrasil had done to them, he was still their child. Now, their child is dead. Where's Gu Jingxiu? His voice was a little gloomy. She shook her head. I don't know. Gu Jingxiu was in a coma at the time. I have been by your side these days and have not asked for news about her. Then she looked at Wei Lingnan and said, I don't know what she has become. It's important. She's not to blame for World Tree's death. As long as you're fine. He sneered, don't blame her? If she hadn't attacked you secretly, how could the trouble have reached this point? She was silent. Wei Lingnan's voice was cold, I will make her pay the price. She still stopped him, as long as you're fine, Nan, don't cause any more troubles. Nothing is more important than the two of them being together properly. After experiencing these life and death, she now only hopes that the years will be peaceful, and those unpleasant things will be gone. Let them dissipate with the wind. The cold aura on Wei Lingnan's body gradually disappeared, and he looked at her tenderly. What did you call me? Nan. She blushed slightly and smiled again. You are my guardian and my husband. In the future, you will breed a new World Tree with me, and we will leave this planet together to rebuild the people of Scatena. Your people and your life are all mine, so you must promise me to be good and never put yourself in danger again to make me worry. He looked at her deeply. Under the peaceful light of the ward, she looked so beautiful, as if she could reach out and touch her. After a long time, he laughed, as you command, my Majesty the Queen. The injuries healed and they held a grand wedding. For this wedding, Wei Lingnan spent a huge sum of money to build a theme amusement park, named Star Wars Era Theme Park. In fact, every layout inside is imitation of Scatena, their hometown. Some reporters and the public questioned, isn't this layout completely similar to Star Wars, Era 1 and 2? Why are theme parks made like this? Wei Lingnan calmly announced the answer, this is the theme of Star Wars Era 3, which is more ambitious than 1 and 2. In this theme park, Xia Yingluo was wearing a white wedding dress, stepping on the deep purple cracked earth pattern unique to her home star of Scatena, walking towards her groom step by step as beautiful flowers as snow drifted away. Their wedding ceremony was very unique, combining human weddings with the Skatana tribe. When he knelt down and kissed her hand, swearing to never leave her, many of the guests present shed tears. The salute sounded. This is the highest honor of a Skatana warrior. Wei Lingnan hugged her and kissed her affectionately in front of everyone. It is the greatest honor in my life to be able to marry you. They went through so many ups and downs and finally were able to be together. She smiled and answered silently in her heart, in fact, being able to marry him was the greatest honor in her life. No one knows about the future. Rebuilding Star Skatana and reproducing the race require their joint efforts. He was still a sinner of his race, and so was she, but what did it matter? On the day of apology, we will live together and die together, and there will be no regrets. The oath is completed and the ceremony is completed. The MC and the guests cheered her to throw the bridal bouquet. She smiled brightly and turned around, her white wedding dress turning up in a beautiful arc with her movements. She looked at the golden bell outside the crowd, blinked at her, and reached out to gently throw it. The snow-like bouquet seemed to have wings, flying gracefully in the pale golden sunshine, and landed accurately. It entered Jin Linger's palm. The girl who received the bouquet looked surprised and looked at the tall man next to her. That tall man, Du Zheng, gave her an extremely soft expression. There is one more thing to announce today. Xia Yingluo glanced at the unhappy expressions of the Du family elders, mainly Shen Yuqiang, and smiled as she took Jin Linger's hand and led her to her parents. Linger, she is a good friend of mine and is very close to my parents. My parents want to take advantage of today's happy day to adopt Linger as their goddaughter. Linger, I wonder if you are willing. The whole place was in an uproar. What kind of status is the Li family? Who doesn't know how important this goddaughter is? For a time, all eyes of envy, jealousy, confusion, and curiosity were focused on Jin Linger. Only Jin Linger had known about this arrangement for a long time. She smiled shyly, looked at Li Lei and Xiaoling, and called softly, "Godfather and Godmother." The girl smiled shyly. She was very fond of her, so Li Lei and Xiaoling each gave her a generous meeting gift, which made the surrounding guests envious. Li Lei even announced, "Linger will be like my own daughter from now on. Anyone who has Yingluo's share will have Linger's share. No one of you is allowed to bully her. If anyone marries her, I will pay a big share dowry." The Du family naturally understood who these words were addressed to. Shen Yuqiang's expression was gloomy and uncertain, but she soon realized that even a goddaughter of the Li family was richer and more powerful than serious ladies elsewhere, wasn't she? So, she looked at Jin Linger and smiled kindly. The wedding ended successfully, and Xia Yingluo and Wei Lingnan became a couple that everyone envied. Wei Lingnan went to find Gu Jingxiu behind her back, hoping to end the life of the woman who had tried to murder Xia Yingluo several times. Unexpectedly, he found that Gu Jingxiu had gone crazy. The Gu family put her in a mental hospital. Regardless, the former eldest lady is now dirty and down and out. One of her hands was missing in the explosion. Her hair is messy. She is always screaming in fear and picking up garbage and putting it in her mouth. Congested, anxious all day long. Wei Lingnan suddenly didn't want to kill her anymore, so he might as well let her live in such embarrassment for the rest of her life to atone for the crimes she had committed. The theme park on Skatana was officially opened to the public after the wedding. The epic scene attracts thousands of visitors. The forest of steles in the center of the theme park is engraved with the history of the Skatana tribe from ancient times to the present. This brave and fighting race is known and praised by humans on the earth in this way. The remains of the world tree seeds after they exploded were buried under these forest of steles. Many people come to visit every day to lament and even commemorate the tragic deeds of this mysterious race. It is also a good destination for it. Xia Moyan accompanied Xia Yingluo to the theme park. Looking at the crowd of people, Xia Mo said, "This is a good start." Xia Yingluo smiled, "Yes. Human beings will learn about that distant and powerful planet and their allies in this way. Perhaps hundreds of millions of years later, the rebuilt Scatena tribe and the stronger humans can fight side by side and create a more glorious era. And all of this begins with love. Complete. At this point, Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, the return of the Queen has officially ended, and there will be no other extra episodes. I know you want to see Wei Shayin, Brother Xia and Luo Luo, but the year and a half long serialization makes Yingying is very tired, and she is afraid that she will not be in good condition and will not be able to achieve the desired effect, so she gave up after much consideration. You can just make up their own stories. Thank you for your support. Along the way, around April, Yingying will release a new book, so welcome to read it. I love you all. End of this chapter.